Hello, everyone. Professor Thompson here, and it is week 2 of our class, and I have a few important kind of announcements slash reminders to go over with you today about our class as we lead into the first deadline. I want to first remind everybody that the entirety of unit number 1 is due on June 10th, so that's 2 days away. So you want to make sure that you're completing everything within that first unit tab. That includes all of the chapter modules, all of the chapter quizzes. Make sure that you're completing the PRCA, PRPSA assessments. There's a couple discussion boards, and remember that you also need to respond to a couple of your classmates on those discussion boards. And then finally, and very importantly, you have your State of Illinois first required presentation due as part of unit number 1. So one thing that I noticed as I'm getting tons of questions this week is that some of you didn't necessarily read the syllabus and or the course outline. You want to make sure that you understand that you are gathering your audience of 8 or more people, that you are recording in a public venue of some sort, and that you are recording in an unedited fashion and loading that presentation into our system for evaluation. So those details are really clear, and I feel like I have fielded some very basic questions about the number of people you need, or where you might load the video. And some of that stuff was covered either in the syllabus or the welcome videos. There are a couple other small tidbit things as far as grading I want to mention. The student introduction, which was a survey that was in the Start Here tab, and the PRCA and PRPSA self-assessment forms are graded manually. And so most of the things within Unit 1, like the chapters and the modules, are automatic grades that will populate once you complete them. These 3 things are things that I look at and then I'll insert a score. They're completion type of grades, so if you've done them, rest assured you're going to get full credit for them. I'm actually working behind the scenes right now to try and generate an automatic response for those things, and I just haven't gotten to that point yet where you would get a response that confirms I have them and that a grade would be pending. But I should have all of those complete by later this afternoon as I continue to grade today. Today will be a big grading day for me. I have a lot of grading to do today leading up to the end of Unit 1. I want to try and make sure that I have most of the student stuff graded in Unit 1, so that all I really have to focus on this coming weekend is evaluating all the presentations that are due on the 10th, which is Friday. So remember that you have until 11:30 p.m. to upload and submit your unit number 1 video. Your IEI number 1 video has to be submitted by 11:30. Also, I've had a lot of questions about what constitutes a public venue. Again, if it's outside of your house in some fashion, whether it's a park, whether it's a movie theater, whether it's a library, a conference room, I've had people ask about churches. Yes, all of those constitute public venues. So again, if you have a specific question about your venue that you're going to use, please don't feel afraid to ask me, and I'll give you a yes or no response. But so far, the overwhelming majority has been that yes, you are selecting a public venue. You all have done a great job at identifying somewhere outside of the house. Don't forget that you do need to submit an outline of your presentation. On the left-hand side, there is an outline submission tab, and this is where you create a Roman numeral or a bullet type of outline, which is essentially a roadmap for me to follow your presentation. I know that in the chapters that were a part of Unit 1, it did discuss and talk about outlining, so you do have a framework or background to follow for your presentation. And you just upload your outline. I will look at that. I will have that in front of me as I watch your presentation and critique your presentation. Also, when you submit your outlines, there will be a safe assigned percent that is a part of that. This is a plagiarism tool that is a part of Blackboard. I would not get too caught up in the percentage that your plagiarism safe assigned thing gives you. If I have a red flag or a concern, I will contact you individually as a student to try and discuss that. But there will really never be a time when you submit an outline that you're going to have a 0% score on that. But again, make sure that you're giving credit where credit is due when you're submitting your work, so that if you're using a quotation, if you're using a statistic or something like that, that it's attributed to the location where you received it. A couple other speech-related questions that I've had so far this week as you lead up to recording your presentations. One is about dress and dress code. I don't really care what you're dressed like for your presentations unless I specifically identify that in the speaking requirement sheet. So typically for the first 2 presentations, I'm not real hung up on dressing overly professional. I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to deliver your presentations. But I do believe on the final presentation of the term, I have a very subtle business casual aspect of the way I would like you to dress for your presentation. So unless otherwise noted, feel free to dress how you see fit. The second thing that has come up has to do with defining your audience. One of the state of Illinois sentences in the criteria, it talks about defining your audience. For example, if you were going to talk about changing a school board policy, it's the idea that you would be addressing the school board, potentially. It would be your audience. Or if you were going to be discussing nutritious eating, your audience could be 3rd and 4th grade boys and girls at an elementary school or something. Typically what I do for the presentation is I use my best judgment and I take whatever your topic is and I make an assumption about what your designated or defined audience is. So I don't necessarily need you to in some way state on your video who your audience is. I don't need you to write it down on a paper as part of your outline or anything like that. Just realize that I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and the trust here that you are generating your presentation thoughtfully to the audience that you had in mind. And typically I'm kind of thinking that you're giving it to an uninformed audience, so an audience that may not know anything about your specific topic. The next thing that has come up for questions has to do with visual aids. Yes, you are required to have a visual aid, and I really would hope that you would go with one type of visual aid. I don't want you to get caught up in having 5, 6, 7 different kinds of visual aids. I do have a handout for visual aids on the handout tab, so if you click on the handout tab, there is a nice handout that identifies several different types of visual aids that you could use. I know that the book talks about different visual aids that you could use for speeches. I don't want you to get hung up on using PowerPoint. I think way too often we use that as a crutch, an online crutch or an electronic crutch to help us get through speeches. But there are many different kinds of visual aids that you can use to be successful in your speaking endeavors. So please feel free to use pictures and objects and flip charts and things of that nature that are just as efficient and effective as a PowerPoint. Now, if you present in a classroom or a boardroom or something like that where you have access to technology and you want to use PowerPoint, well then feel free to use that. But the goal here is that you're integrating your visual aid into your speech. Okay, the next thing that I just kind of want to mention is that, I would highly recommend that you try uploading your video and you start working on the technology piece of this early. I don't want you to get to 11 p.m. on the 10th and be running into technical issues or problems. One of the things that I really put down is in the syllabus is, if the technical problems at 11:30 p.m., they're not my fault. And while I would feel for you, there's nothing I can really do about it at that point. So you want to make sure that if you're having issues, you allow yourself enough time to resolve those issues. Generally speaking, I have very few issues. The uploading process is pretty simple. Some of you have already completed that process, and I appreciate that. I will start evaluating presentations on the 10th when they start coming in. So if you've already uploaded your video, I haven't watched it yet. I haven't looked at your outlines yet, but I will start doing that on the 10th. My personal goal is to grade the presentations over the weekend, and then on Monday at some point, maybe even into Monday evening of next week, I will scan in and I will email you to your COD email account feedback and the critique of your presentation, so that you should get a PDF scan from me with some thoughts, some positive comments, and some constructive criticism on how you can improve your next presentation as we move forward. Okay, I think that's all I have for today. I wish you all the best of luck. I hope you're working hard and getting things completed. And again, please email me if you have some specific questions or concerns.